So we're going to go now to Nancy Wenninger. She's going to be talking about gardening for birds. So Nancy is a multiple garden tour host, a longtime Audubon Society member, an enthusiastic birder. And when she began to work on her garden in Walnut Creek, she made sure that her garden provided food, water, shelter, and nesting areas for birds. This is Nancy's back garden. More than 80 species of birds have been seen in Nancy's garden, including ruby-crowned kinglets, woodpeckers, tanagers, screech owls, and most recently, a lazuli bunting. If you enjoy watching birds, and who wouldn't want to sit here and watch birds? So she has water for wildlife, a chair for herself. So you can raise your hands if you're on Zoom. If you would like to relax in that chair and watch some birds, I know I would. If you enjoy watching birds in your garden, you could type into your Zoom or YouTube chat. Oh, I see so many hands going up. I too, I want to join Nancy. You can type into the chat what birds you have seen or would like to attract to your garden. And now, Jessica, if you would go ahead and bring Nancy on. So do I need to stop sharing? I stop share. Okay. So do we have Nancy? I hope that we do. And let's see if we have Nancy Wenninger. Looks like we may not have Nancy Wenninger on.
Yep. Let me take a quick look to see if she's someplace else.
All right. And in the meanwhile, I'm going to show people something.
Oh, she is just joining right now.
Oh, she's just joining. Okay. So I will, how do I stop sharing then? I guess I click.
There she is.
Okay. Nancy, are you with us? Do we have to ask her to unmute?
Yep. Nancy, if you'd like to turn on your video and your microphone, that would be great.
All right. Hi, Nancy. How are you?
I'm well, thank you, Kathy.
Good.
Waiting for the rain to start, but
has it not started yet in Walnut Creek?
It has not.
It's raining here in San Pablo, so it's a lovely day to be doing a garden tour virtually. So let's see, Nancy, if you wouldn't mind, can we just leap right into your PowerPoint presentation?
Sure.
Okay, so you'll share your screen and.
Okay, ready?
Let's go.
Okay. Well, I fell in love with birding about 25 years ago when I saw my first Western tanager. And since then, I've traveled thousands of miles to see birds, but my favorites are still the ones in my own garden. They bring beauty and music and the drama of their everyday lives. They keep me in touch with the seasons as they change. And I just love having the birds there. But the birds are really under threat from many directions, most of which are reducing their habitat. And so by choosing, we can help by choosing native plants for our yards. We can restore vital habitat for the birds and help them adapt and survive.
Hi, Nancy. I'm so sorry to interrupt you. I don't currently see your PowerPoint. Can we take a quick moment and work on that?
Yeah. So we see you, Nancy, but I think you're not sharing your screen.
Yep. So let's, okay. So at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see something that says it's green and it says share screen.
Yes, I thought I did that, but.
No problem. We'll walk through it.
Okay, just a second. Let me.
No problem.
Okay, share screen.
Mm-hmm. And then select the PowerPoint screen from the little box that's in front of you, which I'm sure you've done 100 times.
Are we there now?
No, I still can't see your video. I can't see your PowerPoint. Kathy, do we have a backup copy of the PowerPoint that one of us could share?
No, but
Oh, I can see you're sharing your screen. There you go. Awesome. Very cool.
So you just take it from the top again.
Perfect.
Sorry.
Thank you so much.
That's all right. We got it now.
Okay, from the beginning. Okay, are we there?
You are good. Good to go.
Good.
Okay. So as I was saying, our birds are under threat from many different sources, primarily loss of habitat, but we can help by choosing native plants for our yards. We can restore vital habitat for the birds and help them adapt and survive. If you plan for birds throughout their annual cycle, you'll end up with a garden like this. Include a diversity of native plant foods for all seasons. Plant in layers to provide structural diversity in your habitat. Provide a source of clean, fresh water. And choose plants which provide shelter for roosting and nesting sites. And don't forget the things not to include: invasive plants, chemical fertilizers and pesticides, and outdoor cats. Bird-friendly is also climate-friendly. Lawnmowers account for up to 5% of greenhouse gas emissions in the US. And fertilizers release nitrous oxide, which is a powerful greenhouse gas. Lawn stores some carbon, but trees and shrubs store more. A yard full of native plants provides the resources birds need to feed their babies, refuel during migration, and survive and thrive all year round. Native plants are adapted to local conditions. Once established, they conserve water and help reduce the volume of pesticides and fertilizers that are loaded into the environment. This improves overall water quality and soil health. The good news is that if you plant natives, birds will find them and eat what they have to offer. Food from plants offers complete nutrition for birds: protein from insects, protein and fat from nuts and seeds, sugar and antioxidants from berries. 96% of land birds feed insects in all forms to their chicks. The orange-crowned warbler on the right has a tiny aphid in its bill. The ash-throated flycatcher is bringing a winged insect back to its nest box. An abundant insect population, including caterpillars, is critical for a successful breeding season. Native insects eat pretty much only native plants with which they co-evolved. This list shows the best native trees ranked by the number of caterpillar species each group hosts. Choose the best for birds plants when you landscape your outdoor space, such as flannel bush and ceanothus species. Another critically important category of food is fruit. Natives which produce edible fruits include barberries, coffee berries, currants, manzanitas, toyans, wild roses, and wild grape. Here's a beautiful first-year western bluebird eating the berries on an elderberry. Nectar, of course, is an important food source for our hummingbirds. Natives which produce nectar include manzanitas, alum roots, monkey flowers, penstemons, sages, and California fuchsia. Here are several more plants in my garden which provide seasonal nectar for the hummingbirds. Acorns and other nuts and seed from our native grasses and other plants provide food in the fall and winter when other food sources are not readily available. Here, a chestnut-backed chickadee is feeding on a willow in spring. When you're planning your garden, think in terms of different layers or stories. Trees provide the canopy. Small trees and shrubs form the mid-story layer, and the understory consists of the ground cover of grasses and broad-leafed herbaceous plants. The more habitat layers you have, the more birds your space can support, even if it's a tiny urban yard. The most important single thing you can do to attract birds to your garden is to provide clean, fresh water for drinking and bathing, which birds need to do often to keep their feathers in top condition. Here are some examples of water features in my garden. Some have recirculating pumps, but the movement of the water is not necessary. Birds will find still bird baths too. The hermit thrush at the lower left is bathing at a mister. And some of the most exciting bird watching occurs at water features, such as these two Bullock's orioles having a squabble. And you might get a surprise visitor too, like this Cooper's hawk, who stopped by for a soak. Finally, trees such as this oak and evergreen shrubs and trees provide nest sites as well as important shelter from cold and cover from predators. For several years, you'll want to make sure you have plants in this category in your yard. You can also provide artificial structures, such as the bluebird nest box in the center photo for cavity nesters. I've had nests for the last 2 years in my bluebird nest, and last year they did 2 broods. Sometimes birds improvise. For several years, a pair of titmice have successfully used my light post as a nest site. You can also put up a barn owl box, but only if you're certain that your neighbors are not using rodenticides. Products such as Decon kill not only rodents, but hawks and owls and other wildlife which feed on them. These poisons contain chemicals which interfere with blood coagulation, and the victims suffer a cruel and painful death. Please use other methods such as traps to control rodents. Any garden can become a haven for birds, but each garden is unique. When planning your garden, assess the conditions. Is your soil light and sandy or heavier like clay? How much direct sun does the garden get? And where are the shady spots? What's the topography like? Slopes where soil drainage is increased? Is there a water source nearby? So in conclusion, I'd like to say that I hope that maybe you've gotten some ideas how you can attract some more birds to your garden by choosing California native plants. So I'd like to entertain any questions that people have at this point.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy. That was fantastic. And thank you to your Audubon friends for, I know they helped you out by providing you photos. They were just beautiful.
Yes, great photos. Thank you.
So tell me, what would you suggest that people could do in their gardens tomorrow to start helping birds? How can people just get going?
Well, I think the most important thing you can do is to provide water. You know, we haven't had much rain this year, and water is going to become a problem for the birds as the weather gets hotter and their natural sources of water dry up. So it's really important to keep the water features clean, prevent algae and other contaminants. I have to say that I have a bird fountain in a bird bath in my front yard, and the crows have recently started using it as a sink, and they bring their dinners there. And I have found most recently a Nature Valley granola bar wrapper that was torn open, and all the granola was floating around in the water. So that was very unappealing. So my solution was I bought an artificial dead crow and I hung it over the bird bath, and it has discouraged them from returning.
It would discourage me from returning too.
Yes, well, it worked.
So can I say a question here is, do we need to clean a bird bath every day? How often do you need to clean your bird baths?
It's a good idea if you can clean it every day.
Okay.
There are algicides that are available that do not harm the birds, that can keep the algae from growing, but it's really important to have clean, fresh water.
Yeah. And what is a good source to buy a barn owl box or a bluebird box?
Well, you can go online. There are instructions. I would say that each bird species has specific specifications for the kind of bird box that they would need. The entrance has to be a certain size and not larger. And I've also found it helpful with my bluebird box to purchase a guard, a metal ring that goes around the door to keep the squirrels from chewing and making the hole larger so that they can use the nest box. Also, there are places like Wild Birds Unlimited that sell ready to go bird boxes. And if people are interested in contacting the Bluebird Recovery Program, I think they also supply bluebird nest boxes.
Now, Nancy, or if any, like Bob or Stephanie, if you want to chime in, I know there's been a problem lately, and a couple people have asked about the salmonella and bird problem. So they're asking, is it safe to put the water out for birds now? I think we're still supposed to keep our feeders. I don't have any feeders myself, but people are asked to keep their feeders down. But what about putting out water at this time of bird salmonella outbreak, Nancy and Bob, if you know?
I can just tell you what Lindsay recommends now, Lindsay Wildlife, and they as of April 1st, they said it's okay to put the bird feeders out again, but just watch them, and if you see any sick birds, take them down again.
Okay.
I would agree with that. I don't have seed feeders except for Niger seed or thistle seed. And I don't have trays. I don't have a large feeder that attracts a lot of birds. And I've kept my eye out for sick birds. I haven't seen any. And I know they come to my water features. And as long as I keep the water clean, I just haven't seen any sick birds.
And I just like to say about feeders, I had feeders in my yard when I moved here 30 years ago, but I took them down a long time ago. I think there were rats, and I also didn't like the weeds that came up underneath them. But when I first moved into my yard, we had a scruffy lawn and these weird South African plants and ivy and Himalayan blackberry. And I didn't see any birds in our yard. But since we put in our native plant garden and put in a pond, in my own small lot in San Pablo, I've seen 30 species of birds. It's been pretty exciting and pretty amazing. And I don't have feeders up anymore. I figured my plants are my bird feeders.
Yeah, I would second that. I've noticed a lot of the smaller birds like the bush tits and goldfinches come regularly checking out my dead flower heads like the white sage and the Enselia I have. It's a live bird feeder. So want to give a plug for not deadheading until the birds clean it up.
I remember Dr. Talamy saying in a previous talk, I don't think he said it in this one, he said, baby birds do not eat seeds, they do not eat berries, and they do not eat sugar water. They need caterpillars. And so just something that I've thought with my own yard is my plants are my bird feeders. I don't have feeders up. So the question here was, Nancy, do you put up bird feeders or do you rely on native plants only? That's from Carolyn.
The feeders that I have up, I do have a suet feeder that I fill with bark butter because selfishly, I like to see the birds that come to the suet feeder. I like to see the woodpeckers. I like to see the chickadees. I like to see the titmice. Anybody who wants to have the suet, it's there. It does not create a problem with unwanted visitors like rats. I too took down my seed feeders a long time ago. I do feed hummers. I have hummingbird feeders up in several locations around my house. But besides that, I also depend upon the native plants in my garden to feed the birds.
Okay, I have a question from Pamela. She asked, what are the best plants for hummingbirds?
Well, hummingbirds need food all year round. And I find that the manzanitas, which bloom in the wintertime, provide a good source of food for them. Springtime, there are a lot of plants that are blooming now. The salvias are particularly good for the hummers. But then I also had some other photographs of like the columbine, the currant plants, the ribes family, also are good for hummingbirds. There are quite a few plants that produce nectar that the hummers will come to.
Monkey flower and penstemon and fuchsia.
Yes, also good ones. Yes, the fuchsia blooms in late summer into the fall, and so that fills that gap. You want to try to get an assortment of plants that will bloom at different times of the year so that they have food year round.
Okay. All right, good. Nancy, I'm going to say thank you so much for the talk, for those beautiful photos. It was so informative and helpful. And Nancy's garden has been on the tour a number of times, and so is Bob's and Stephanie's. So I want to say, and Kelly's. If you go to the tour's agenda, and now or later on, and you can click on the names of any of our speakers today, and you can link over to their gardens. You can see their plant lists, photos of their gardens, bird lists. Bob has mammal, reptile, and amphibian lists. So I hope you take advantage of that. So Nancy, I want to thank you so much for being with us today. That was a fabulous presentation.
Thanks, Kathy.